In the headlines, Joseph Harman tells CCJ the Court of Appeal said nothing about any criteria for the Chief Elections Officer to determine valid votes. The AFC coalition says David Granger will not concede defeat at the March 2 polls. A fiery weekend resulted in the destruction of a vehicle belonging to TV journalist Travis Chase, kills a family in Cummings Lodge and doctor's residence in Mabaruma. The state-of-art COVID-19 hospital is almost complete, and in sport, Root's potential absence doesn't make it easier for West Indies, says Bonner. With the news, I'm Avenash. Ramzan, good evening and thank you very much for joining us. We started by telling you that campaign manager for the APNU AFC, Joseph Harman, has surprisingly shifted the coalition's position on the recent ruling of Guyana's appeal court in a new submission to the Caribbean Court of Justice. Kurt Campbell reports.
Thank you, Avenash. The coalition had gone public in supporting the report from Keith Lowenfield, the country's chief elections officer, who discarded over 115,000 votes to calculate a victory for the APNU AFC. But campaign manager of the APNU AFC, Joseph Harman, now says Lowenfield could not depend, as he previously claimed, on last Monday's ruling of the Court of Appeal. In his written submission to the CCJ, Harman contends that the Court of Appeal made no determination as to whether the votes cast were valid or not, and imposed no criteria by which the validity of the votes would be determined. The Court of Appeal, in interpreting Article 1772 of the Constitution, ruled that the party with the most valid votes should emerge the winner and gave no further directions or orders. But a day after the Court of Appeal decision, Lowenfield submitted a report that was starkly different from his original report of the results of a national vote recount, and said that he was basing his decision on guidance from the Court of Appeal judgment. In so doing, Lowenfield took it upon himself to decide that votes are valid and fix his report accordingly to give APNU AFC a victory. It is a report Harman accepted. But in written submissions to the CCJ, Harman's attorneys noted that the Court of Appeal now rightfully claims that the Court of Appeal did not purport by its order to determine the validity of an election nor votes cast in respect of an election. Rather, the Court of Appeal determined solely a question as to the validity of an election of a president insofar as question concerned the interpretation of the Constitution and no more. In other words, the Court of Appeal made no determination as to whether the votes cast were valid or not, and imposed no criteria by which the validity of votes would be determined. In preparing its new report, Lowenfield disobeyed the clear instructions of the chair of the Elections Commission, retired Judge Claudette Singh. The chairman had instructed Lowenfield to use the certified figures from the recount and prepare his report. But Lowenfield's latest report flipped the figures to give APNU AFC 33 seats and give the PPP 31 seats. Lowenfield has not explained how he came up with his latest figures, and Justice Singh has not said what she will do with his report. There have been calls for Lowenfield to be dismissed or be suspended from having anything further to do with the elections process. The CCJ will on Wednesday determine whether it has jurisdiction to hear that case.
Thank you, Kurt. Now, a former top U.S. State Department official has warned the incumbent David Granger government that Washington has measures and sanctions it can impose on anyone who seeks to thwart the will of the Guyanese people and swear in a president who was undemocratically elected. Mr. Jose R. Cardenas, who has 30 years of experience in the Washington political process and inter-American relations, told Guyanese reporters at the weekend that these sanctions include a revocation of visas and freezing of Guyana's oil money, which currently sits in the United States Federal Reserve. He also urged President Granger to do the right thing and concede defeat. We're joined now by Fariza Hanif.
Jose Cardenas, who has served in senior positions in the U.S. Department of State, the National Security Council, and the U.S. Agency for International Development, said it was erroneous for others to think or say that the U.S. has no authority to impose sanctions, as he referenced the sanctions imposed on Guyana's neighbor Venezuela. He explained that the use of sanctions is a disincentive for people who have malign interests.
So anybody in Georgetown who is thinking of either diverting the outcome of the election, the will of the Guyanese people, has been manifested not only in the March 2nd election, but in the recount, which has been pretty clear from all press reports. And it seems to be most of the international organizations, including CARICOM, have basically concluded that the recount shows that the opposition won the election. And if there's somebody that tries to thwart the will of Guyanese people in that respect, Washington absolutely has measures it can impose on that individual that relates to their ability to, for example, have a bank account in the United States or otherwise do banking in their private lives that touch the U.S. economic system. That person also can lose their ability to travel to the United States. Their visas can be revoked. And if it is decided to be a larger conspiracy, and I'm just speculating here, but it's important to understand what the options are in the United States for all concerned, is that if there is determined to be a government-wide conspiracy to thwart the will of the Guyanese people, absolutely the U.S. can place sectoral sanctions, which would, of course, threaten the oil patrimony that Guyana now possesses.
It has been 119 days now since Guyanese went to the polls, and to date, no winner has been declared. The recently concluded national 35-day recounting certification of all votes was embarked upon after returning officer of Guyana's largest voting district, Region 4, Clermont Mingo, inflated the numbers to give the coalition a victory at the polls. The recount proved that Mingo subtracted 3,000 plus PPP votes and added 19,000 votes for the coalition. But the recount, which was supervised by a high-level 3-member CARICOM team, proved that the PPP won the elections by more than 15,000 votes. Local and international observers, including the Private Sector Commission, the Organization of American States OAS, the Commonwealth, and the ABCE foreign powers have urged acceptance of the recount results. Mr. Cardenas explained that the U.S. will first seek to consult with international organizations before imposing sanctions, because it will have a huge impact on Guyana's oil industry. He made it clear that these stakeholders will use Guyana's oil as leverage, referring to U.S. oil major ExxonMobil, which is operating in Guyana's largest oil block. The freezing of the oil money is a worst-case scenario and will only be done based on the outcome of Guyana's elections, Mr. Cardenas explained.
So yes, the answer to your question is if those funds sit in a U.S. institution, they certainly can be frozen. And you're absolutely right. I don't know I don't know in depth enough about the contracts that Guyana has signed with ExxonMobil, but I expect that it's always a possibility that the government, the current government, could attempt to, if again we are in that worst case scenario, and the oil and the funds and Exxon is prohibited from furthering exploitation or otherwise lifting the oil, moving it to international markets. Very likelihood, I suspect, that the Guyanese government could attempt to sever its relationship with ExxonMobil and perhaps bring in a company such as we've seen in Venezuela, where Russian oil interests have been brought in to work. And these are, of course, entities that work around the U.S. financial system. It's not easy. It's more expensive. So you would have to find a partner who is willing to bear the excessive cost of doing business outside the U.S. Economic banking financial system.
The former top U.S. official urged President Granger to concede defeat at the polls and to allow the country to move on.
You know, when I see a man like President Granger, I think this is a man who has dedicated his life to Guyana, and a better Guyana for his people. I think he has a lot of pride. And in the end, I think he'll do the right thing. I understand the the situation. I think that the ruling government has a lot of frustrations with what has taken place over the last few months, and it's a very human reaction to what I assume they feel to be have been treated unfairly in their minds. So I get that, but I think that in the end, I think that hope that President Granger does what is best for his country, and I think that is to understand that the people have spoken. Whether you believe the election was, there were problems with how it was conducted, is that my humble advice with thoughts of the best thing for the Guyanese people is for President Granger to concede, and on day 2 begin the process of competing fairly and freely in the next election, and with an eye towards rectifying any discrepancies or problems they saw in the last election so that it doesn't happen again.
But despite President Granger previously committing to accepting the recount results, he has refused to accept defeat and has since embarked on a campaign to claim electoral fraud without providing evidence. The recount from the elections showed the opposition PPP winning by 15,416 votes. But these figures are not being accepted by the incumbent coalition, who has alleged that dead people and persons residing overseas voted. The Guyana Elections Commission is restrained from declaring the winner, as the matter is now engaging the attention of Guyana's final appellate court, the Caribbean Court of Justice.
We tell you now that the Central Islamic Organization of Guyana, CIOG, is calling on the Guyana Elections Commission, GECOM, to fulfill its constitutionally mandated duty and declare the winner of the 2020 election as soon as the Caribbean Court of Justice, the CCJ, has made its ruling. A statement from the CIOG on Monday noted that Guyanese citizens have demonstrated admirable restraint and patience while the elections process and its results have been subjected to many stages of overview and review prior to verification. According to the CIOG, after intense scrutiny, the CARICOM Observer team declared that they were of the unshakable belief that the people of Guyana expressed their will at the ballot box on March 2. The statement noted that to the great credit of the nation, all international and CARICOM observers have vouched that Guyana's 2020 elections process was free, fair, and credible. The Guyanese people should be proud of this accomplishment, for when democracy wins, everyone wins, the CIOG said. The CIOG noted that now it is time to honor and respect the will of the people as expressed by the majority of the electorate at the polls. The CIOG also called on the Guyana Police Force to uphold the rule of law in a responsible manner while simultaneously monitoring and addressing any inflammatory actions in order to serve and protect all Guyanese citizens. The incumbent APNU AFC has rejected calls from local and international observers to concede defeat at the March 2, 2020 elections, with its campaign manager Joseph Harman making it clear on Sunday that it is the most ridiculous and nonsensical proposition. Here, Fraser Hanif now joins us.
Thank you, Avenash. During his appearance on 104.3 Power FM, campaign manager of the APNU-AFC coalition, Joseph Harman, reiterated the coalition's support for the recount report of the Chief Elections Officer, Keith Lowenfield, which gives the incumbent a victory and dumps over 115,000 votes. Mr. Harman, in his remarks, made it clear that President David Granger will not concede defeat, as he once again claimed that widespread fraud tarnished the Guyana's March 2nd general and regional elections.
There you have it, a report in the Elections Commission showing all the valid votes, and still people are calling for Mr. Granger to concede. Concede to what? Concede to who? What is he to concede to? It appears to me, I'll venture to say, any right-thinking person to be a most ridiculous and nonsensical proposition.
On Friday, a powerful group of the U.S. Senate called on President Granger to honor the will of the Guyanese people and concede defeat. They said a declaration of the winner of the elections must be based on the national vote recount scrutinized by CARICOM, the Kingdom of Norway, the Commonwealth, the Organization of American States, OAS, CARICOM, the British and Canadian High Commissioners, the United States Ambassador, the European Union, the Elders Group, and other international and local observers have urged the president to do the right thing and concede. But Harman and Sunday said Guyanese are waiting patiently for Mr. Granger to be sworn in.
Our people have been waiting for over 190 days for their president to be sworn in. And it has taken a toll on their patience. When you add the COVID-19 restrictions to this, one can understand the anxiety of the Guyanese people to have President Granger sworn in. So to those persons who are calling for Mr. Granger to concede, that is not going to happen.
The recount results show that the opposition People's Progressive Party has won the elections by 15,416 votes. But Lowenfield's latest report gives the APNU-AFC a victory with 171,825 votes. But despite President Granger previously committing to accepting the recount results, he has refused to accept defeat and has since embarked on a campaign to claim electoral fraud without providing evidence. The recount exercise was supervised by a high-level three-member CARICOM team, which has since determined that the recount results are completely acceptable and that the winner should be declared. President Granger had described the CARICOM scrutineers as the most legitimate interlocutor in the Guyana elections. But since the CARICOM report was released, the president has not addressed the media or the nation. Back to you, Avenash.
When the Newsroom returns, a fire completely destroys a vehicle belonging to TV journalist Travis Chase, and a family is desperate for answers over the disappearance of a police constable. Stay tuned. Welcome back. This is the Newsroom. Police are investigating the cause of a fire which completely destroyed a brand new vehicle belonging to TV journalist Travis Chase at around 2:45 on Monday. CCTV footage shows someone jumping the fence and setting the car on fire. Isnella Patwa reports.
CCTV footage at the Ministry of Public Service compound on Vicingen Road and Dorwan Street, Georgetown, shows the perpetrators scaling the fence and setting fire to the car in the wee hours of Monday. The brand new car belongs to TV journalist Travis Chase, who works with HJP-TV Nightly News. Chase told the Newsroom that he usually parks his Honda CR-V in the ministry's compound for security purposes since he lives close by. He said he was alerted to the fire by the female security guard and initially thought it was the ministry's building on fire. He believes someone deliberately set his car on fire. The female security guard, who did not want to appear on camera, explained to the Newsroom what occurred.
When I go and peep and see the fire start, I scramble the key and I run over there. Radar come down heavy. I had him on the road, had him for Travis Chase about 15 times. Right? Eventually, somebody in the house wake up and then I started shouting stuff for. I said, I got shot because the by vehicle on fire. Travis run now with the towel wrong. He, like me, if he fly down the step or what. But when Travis came here now, and he check and he see how this vehicle start burning, he tried getting on to the fire service and the police and them things, right?
The security guard explained that the fire service took about an hour to arrive. A bus belonging to the ministry was also damaged, along with an employee's motorcycle and the mechanic's car.
Them other vehicles then burning, It's Travis' vehicle alone, this person and Miss Rose. She seen some footage like if somebody by the car, and it be very dark. I was at sucker plant and these things, right? And there did not nobody living there, but yeah, people live over the other side. Travis and like somebody they see like they jump the car and it's very dark, and then she make out the boards and face or nothing do. Throw something and scratch and jump back. And I said that happened like when we supervisor don't drive off. A little while after. But then at least part of the vehicle might have damaged, not the old vehicle, and not these other vehicles that damage and the motorbike. You only see the skeleton of the motorbike left. To me, the fire service, they got to be more, efficient. They came very late though, but they're trying to put out the fire.
Chase, who is also involved in the gold mining business, said he has no feud with anyone in this business, but he noted that in February 2019, someone slashed the tires of his black Dualis vehicle, which he also drives. Reporting for the newsroom, I am Isanella Patwo.
Police Constable Quincy Lewis, who left his home on June 19, 2020 for work, has been reported missing. His mother, Charlene Jordan, told the newsroom that he left his Parfait Harmony, West Bank, Demerara home and has not been seen or heard from since. Lewis, who is stationed at the Agricola Police Station on the east bank of Demerara, never showed up for duty on June 19. A missing persons report has since been made at the Parfait Harmony Police Station.
On the 19th, Friday the 19th, I last saw him about 5:15 when he leaves to go to work. No, it's not normal. Even if he leaves to go to work, saying he would come, even if he come, if they're in, he would, if he gets to come out, he would pass and drop in also. Never at least that long, a day or 2 days. So.
You call his phone?
Yes, it's going to voicemail.
Since when did you realize he was missing?
It's when the driver for the car come, I think like Tuesday afternoon, right? And he said, ringing the phone and he getting nothing. I said, man, tell me going in line. So I said, man, I can try and see. And I ring, and they go into voicemail and they decide to call the station. And then I know that he never reached to work. Only thing he had a problem with a car. Some rental, either rent a car and had a little problem. And he said he paid them off and they keep harassing him. And I tell him, man, you make a mistake because you pay people, you gotta get a receipt. I say, anyway, just clear off the people and pay off and thing, but I ain't hear nothing more about it after. I even raised that with the police. You have to check over this side here because the commander in Brigham said he's done farted over here, so they have to check the bridge. Camera to see if he would actually go over, or if he disappear from over here, and then they know how to proceed. And they get his phone number, and they don't sign the place, though. So you gotta get information about who really going on, if they get anything or what.
The Regional Commander Assistant Commissioner Simon McBean said an investigation was launched, but so far there are no leads. Investigators will be reviewing CCTV footage from the Demerara Harbour Bridge to determine if Lewis crossed the bridge the day he went missing. Anyone with credible information on the whereabouts of Police Constable Quincy Lewis is asked to contact 677-6547, 680-1436 or the nearest police station. We tell you now that a building rented by the Department of Health to house Cuban doctors was completely destroyed by fire in Mabaruma Region 1 on Monday. The doctors were on duty at the Mabaruma Regional Hospital when the fire started sometime after 11 hours. Newsroom understands that the doctors have been working in the area for about 2 years now. A resident of Mabaruma, Ronald Cox, spoke with the newsroom via telephone on Monday and said that nothing could have been done to save the building. The fire quickly spread through the wooden house and burnt it to the ground. Cox explained that there is an auxiliary fire group in Mabaruma, but it cannot do much to assist.
That fire group has a portable pump. But to move the pump, you'll have to get it to be moved with another vehicle, probably a tractor, a truck, a bike, those mountain bikes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's no water storage on it, so you have to get some place to get water to. So it would not make much sense getting it to the location, and it takes a long time to move. At the time when I reached the location, it was already engulfed. Totally, I was standing like 200 yards away, and the heat was so much, so I could imagine somebody getting closer.
Construction of the Mabaruma fire station is almost 95% complete, but it is now being used as a quarantine facility for COVID-19 patients. A family of 3 was killed in a fire which destroyed a huge apartment building in 6th Street Cummings Lodge on Saturday evening. 23 other persons, including children, are also homeless. Isnal Patwa tells us more.
Police and fire investigators are continuing investigations into a deadly fire which tragically killed a family of 3 and left 25 homeless at Cummings Lodge, Greater Georgetown at the weekend. Dead are 40-year-old Beverly Miller, her 46-year-old husband Marvin Lewis, a businessman of Port Kaituma in Region 1, and their 14-year-old son Dowal Eiffel. Beverly and her husband's body were found huddled together, while the teen's body was found separately in the same room. The building had 8 apartments and a total of 28 persons, including Beverly and her family, lived there. The newsroom understands the landlord is stranded in the United States due to COVID-19 and left his son and daughter in charge. The fire is believed to have been deliberately set. The landlord's son, who is a suspect in police custody, had just left the building when the fire started. He was reportedly collecting rent from tenants. Relatives at the scene told the newsroom that the family's apartment was heavily grilled, and so it is presumed they were trapped inside when the fire started. Beverly's sister, Desiree Miller, spoke with the newsroom at the scene.
What happened?
Me was
on a big bag. You weren't at home?
No.
And what were you told?
That 3 get 5 and 3 them get born trapped in the fire.
And y'all were able to confirm that they found their bodies, that they were trapped?
I really know what's going on in there right now.
The place was like grilled up so that they could be trapped inside?
Yeah.
The place was grilled up.
The newsroom understands that the family moved into the apartment building in March this year. The apartment building is located next to the Cummings Lodge Secondary School. The family lived in the lower flats with others. One of the tenants, Cleon Williams, said the fire started in the upper flats of the building. Williams was Beverly's nephew. Meanwhile, Marvin's sister, Coretta Wolford, also lived in the building with her 5 children, niece and her husband. She spoke with the newsroom via telephone on Monday.
Well, the fire started around 5:24. I heard a scream. I run in the yard. I thought something happened to my children. When I run in the yard, it's my brother's apartment in front with his girlfriend and his stepson. The whole place was in flame from the doorway. So there was no entrance to them to come out because it's one way in, one way out. Everybody, nothing, nobody saved nothing. Everything from the money, everything, documents, everything.
Beverly's sister Desiree also told the newsroom that the building is a source of a dispute between the landlord and the suspect who was arrested at the scene. The building was owned by the landlord's mother, who has since passed away. None of the families were able to save anything in the fire. Anyone willing to assist the families can contact 670-7577, 669-3873, 679-3289, and 677-9917. Reporting for the newsroom, I am Isanella Pato.
A 49-year-old farmer on Monday confessed to bludgeoning a man with a piece of wood after accusing him of eating his wild meat and cassava bread. Charles Leonard, known as Spoon of Port Kaituma, appeared before the High Court Judge Brassington Reynolds via Zoom and pleaded guilty to the manslaughter charge, which stated that between October 5 and 6, 2017, he unlawfully killed Romel Gavaya, called White Boy. The case was adjourned to July 20, pending a probation report. The newsroom understands that the victim lived with Leonard and his wife at Port Kaituma, and on the day in question, the 2 men had a misunderstanding. It is alleged that Leonard was intoxicated and saw Gavaya in the kitchen eating his wild meat with cassava bread. He became angry, picked up a piece of wood, and lashed Gavaya to the head. Gavaya was discovered lying on the kitchen floor in a motionless state by Leonard's wife. The matter was reported to the police, and Leonard was arrested. Retrofitting of the Liliendal facility that once operated as the Ocean View International Hotel will soon be completed to serve as the new infectious diseases hospital, or what is commonly referred to as the COVID-19 hospital.
The newly overhauled facility will in coming weeks serve all categories of COVID-19 patients, but in the future will be well positioned to control other respiratory and multi-resistance forms of infections. Health officials from the government, along with other stakeholders, toured the revamped facility on Monday and were highly commendable of the transformation. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Shamdu Persaud told reporters that the facility will be ready for operation shortly. No other timelines were given. He said the initial concept is to centralize the care services with regards to coronavirus, and once the world conquers the pandemic, then the facility will look to handle any infectious disease accordingly.
Here in this facility, the plan is to handle at least 3 categories of persons: those who are infected and are suffering from the signs and symptoms of the disease, those who are infected but remain asymptomatic, and those who are in quarantine, who are waiting for their results and, who might have been in contact. And so there are 3 different levels of care that will be offered here.
Dr. Persaud said there are still strict compliance with standard to control the spread of infectious diseases, and noted that the environment is also well suited.
There will always be a role for a facility like this. Even if we were to get out of this pandemic shortly, we'll still have the need for a facility like this to help to, bring control. The environment is suited in that it has the space, but it's also located, in a position where there'll be minimum exposure. It's not like in the case of Georgetown Hospital in the middle of a very highly populated area. There might be residents around, and of course, all the control measures will be in place. The system that the engineers are installing here will ensure that even the air, that is in this facility will be kept clean and free of any form of infection.
Even with the building not yet 100% complete, some 9 COVID-19 patients were weeks ago transferred to the facility and were housed there in an open flat for quarantine and treatment. The patients were subsequently taken back to the Diamond Isolation Facility and the East Bank of Demerara. The cost for retrofitting the facility was pegged at $1 billion Guyana dollars. The government has come in for criticism, with some persons not only saying that the US $5 million seemed too much to revamp the facility, but that it would be better spent to upgrade and expand existing health facilities. Under the Acquisition of Lands for Public Purpose Act, the government has signed an order to take full ownership of the Ocean View Hotel back in April. Works to transform the building had commenced prior to that. The acquisition cost is still unknown. Kurt Campbell, Newsroom.
We now bring you the daily update from the Ministry of Public Health on Guyana's COVID-19 situation.
Of the tests that were done, there are 5 new cases, bringing the total number to 235. A total of 114 persons have recovered thus far, and the number of deaths remain at 12. In institutional isolation, we now have 109 active cases. In institutional quarantine, we have 18 persons, and 1 patient is in the COVID-19 ICU. We have conducted 2,552 tests, with 2,317 of these being negative. Over the weekend, we observed large gatherings on the seawall in Region 4 after 6 p.m., despite repeated warnings to observe physical distancing, to wear a mask when out in public, and to adhere to the curfew measures. It is quite obvious that all our messages are falling on deaf ears, and that our young population is determined to do as they please, evidently of the opinion that COVID-19 is a hoax and that they cannot be infected. I do wish to make a special appeal once again to our doubting Thomases in Region 4 that COVID-19 is here in Guyana and will soon catch up with us if we continue with our lax behavior. We call again on residents of Moruca and those in the mining communities in Region 7 to be vigilant and take heed of the warning. We have indicated that a large number of positive cases in both of these regions have no signs and symptoms. These persons can transmit this disease, and you will not even know that they are sick because there is no sign to tell you this. I continue to urge you to wear a mask and observe physical distancing guidelines provided.
When the newsroom returns, the financial weather and bridge reports along with sport. Stay tuned.